Well, Uncle John, what's your take on that match? I was a big fan. I
Yeah,
had front row seats, and I got to announce it or commentate it. It was
yeah.
fun to commentate, man. That was a blast. I really enjoyed it, but I want to hear from your perspective. What was that like?
It was a very good match. It was a it was a fun match for me because these days they've seen me pulling a lot, so I have a lot of people that are like, oh well, they just know what I'm susceptible to, which is a real fast inside hook, right? And so it was nice that because Kane challenged my hand, right? He went up top with me. He went, and there was a couple moments where we had to go into a couple extra gears there. So it was a fun match from the standpoint of I was in a lot of different positions that I don't usually get in, and I knew at the end of the match, like at my like I take my matches, the two matches I've had this year. We'll take them for example. So my first one at Arm Gods was against this guy named Mitch Tutt, and he was just inside. And I really was able to just kind of get him up and in, and I was blocking him with this bone, and I was just, top rolling him over. And after the match, I just felt like I pulled a little bit, right? And there's something that gets left behind because after I pulled Kane, I was like, whoa, God damn it. Am I going to eat shit when it comes to arm wrestling everybody in this place? Because I'm done. so we were pretty blown. I think we were both pretty blown up at the end of it. I was super happy to get the win. Like I've said in the past, I got a lot of respect for where Kane is and what he's been able to accomplish, as far as his arm wrestling career goes. So it was a really good win for me to kind of see, okay, here's where I'm at. Also was a really good barometer for, I wasn't really happy with my endurance. We had some long matches, but there was a few spots where I went down and I was really kind of going almost into a pseudo King's move for just a little tiny bit. And that really started blowing my hand up when we were in the straps. So it was good to kind of identify a few, little few issues now, because now next I'm going to Arm Wars and I have like 6 weeks, right? So that's some of the stuff now that I kind of tested that out. There's enough time now where I can home in and get that endurance built back up a little bit to where it needs to be. But overall, great super match, great day. I thought it was super fun. Like everybody was into it. I also felt like the crowd was into me being poking the bear a little bit, being a little bit of a jerk, right? Like everybody seemed to kind of understand what the situation was, and I thought that made it 1,000 times more enjoyable. So I was really happy about that, and I was really happy about how nice it was to pull everybody afterwards and just be able to talk. I talk a lot of shit for a reason, right? I wanted to make that extra money for the Jim Pattison Foundation. And I think people understood, that it was more of an experiential thing. And, Mr. Klaczynski got right in there as soon as he could after I had that huge super match, of course. Making me look bad.
I didn't want any excuses. I didn't want a whole bunch of people lining up and be like, okay, that's your excuse. And I just went through a whole tournament.
Yeah. I know. No, you guys are very strong out there. There's, a lot of times when a location doesn't get a lot of a hype, like there's no Devon Larratt or something like that, where there's like, because in Ontario, everybody's like so good because they're close to Devon, right? But if you don't have that, then people just kind of push you to the side. But I can tell you guys are all very strong out there. I saw some really good, intense arm wrestling that was like all over the place. So it was very nice to see.
Excellent breakdown. How much does it take out of you just announcing? Like, or what do you call it? Commentating? What do you call it?
Yeah, so I would say what I was doing was emceeing, announcing, commentating. It's the show, right? When you have Uncle John, it's a little bit of everything. And it is a lot. It is a lot, but I know it's a lot, right? I've done it a million times before. I know the level of tiredness I'm going to have. So I just have to kind of measure it out. But the problem is that all the super matches are at the end of the day. And then the match before ours was like the best match that I've seen in a long time. So I was like losing my mind, going nuts on the microphone. And then I'm like, oh my God, now I have to arm wrestle. So it's easy to get wound up, but for me, it's more important to give everybody their moment, right? That's what I really try to focus on, whether it's in the tournament or a super match or whatever it is. If you supply the match, I will supply the moment, right? And I will focus in on that and give people their time. And so I hope that gives people a desire not only to win, but to have good matches, right? To have banger matches. Because I think that's the way our sport grows, is having more matches that are just like dirty and like in the gutter and just two guys killing each other instead of, slip, restart, strap, blah, whatever, flash pin. I think that's kind of what I always look for. So, and it's much easier said than done, right? It's not like you can just, I'm going to have a good match out. Like you have to be close. You have to be ready. You got, there's a whole lot that goes into it, but that's what I'm looking for.
Right on. Thank you. I was always curious, man. When you announce spectate MC, whatever you call it, like you put everything into it. Like you are like involved in that match at that point. Like you are yelling, you're screaming, you're cheering. It's awesome, man. Like there's a lot going into that. I didn't even know.
Well, I hope that people like it. That's the only thing that matters to me is I hope that people like it. And I hope that, I try to have multiple levels of, characterization and, I'm one thing when I'm emceeing and clearly I'm another thing as soon as I go to the match, right? Because in between every round of the match, I'm standing on chairs and yelling at people and all this stupid stuff. But I really like the way it flowed because I was able to kind of have those different levels. I think maybe I only was over the line one time when I said those two guys aren't going to be able to wipe their ass for a week. I think there was a little bit of silence in the crowd. A little bit, yeah. But that's pretty good. Out of like 10 hours, 12 hours, whatever it was, I felt like that was pretty good to only have one minor moment.
You got to find the line somewhere, right?
Yeah.
You got to find it. I thought that was a brilliant line, but I don't know.
I stole it. I stole it from Terry Palaschuk. He's the one that told me. And I'm like, oh, that's a good line. I'll steal that. And then the crowd was just like,
I guess, all the arm wrestlers found it funny because we know how realistic it actually is.
Yeah.
It is hard.
Yeah.
It's hard
to
not
a joke. Like, it is a joke, but it's not a joke.
But it's actually realistic. I mean, it's difficult for a week.
Yeah, there's no doubt. Nice. I'll tell you what, that Brandon Harley match is a perfect example of when that happens. Those guys were out of control.
Yeah, there was nothing left. There's no way either of them had anything left. There's no way.
Man. That was fun match. That was and the quote unquote right thing happened, right? Brandon had all the people there, right? He had so many people there. He had all the hometown crowd. And then it was to the end of the line, and he won in like that very distinct fashion where he switched it up in the last round. So that was a pleasure. That was a pleasure to call, no doubt.
So you let's call it emceeing. You emceeing this event, is this Fit to Fight event? Is this something we might see in the future? Was this like a one-off thing?
No, I mean, I've been doing it for quite a while. I've been jumping around. I got a couple things coming up. But I would be happy to do it anytime, right? As long as I can, basically at this point in my career, anybody who wants me to be anywhere can, as long as you can get me out there and just give me enough money to walk back into my house and show my wife that I did actually make some money. That is the key. That is the key for me at this point in my life. So anybody who's interested, and there's a lot of issue between the character I represent on the internet and then what I do as a performance at a live event. And some is similar and some is not. But hopefully when I go to Saskatchewan, you guys see the show. Clearly you kind of understand what's going on, and it's kind of like, okay, now I see why it's better to have this guy talk than just have dead silence with somebody calling out names all day long, right? That's what makes a tournament long, when there's no continuity, or it's just like, this kind of, I don't want to say WAF style, but the old tournament style where it's just very straightforward. You got people cheering, but if you're not one of the boys, I don't know who the hell this is. I don't know, who knows who it is. And I don't need to know who that is. I just need to know their name. And then from there, it can all get built up on what I see, how they're approaching the table. And then we kind of create it as we go. So, I'm just here to have some fun. And I definitely got to have some fun in Saskatchewan. Oh, yeah, it was good.
Great time. I gotta say, Curtis, you actually did a good job. I will say, like when you took the mic for that match, that was really good. And I noticed how Uncle John, he still, even when he was pulling, he still couldn't turn it off, because he came up, he grabbed the mic from you a couple of times. You were standing on the chair, you were calling out Len Houghton, you're leaning over the rail, and you're like, Len, you want some of that? That was probably my favorite part. That was brilliant.
He grabs the mic right out of my hand, goes, stands on a chair, and just yells at the crowd. Oh my God.
Look, I actually went back, because when I was pulling, I did not hear you at all. Like, my brain just goes, right? So like, I'm just in my own little world. And then I listened back to it, and I was pretty impressed with what you were doing too, actually. I thought it was pretty good. Yeah.
That means a lot coming from you.
yeah, man. It's good.
I would do it again. I can see how you can get into it, because it's kind of like you're just, see, where you really shine. Like, I was just breaking down kind of what was going on and what guys were trying for, but you do a better job of kind of making it a story. Whereas I'm like, hey, he's trying to get the pressure behind there, and the other guy's blocking with this, and you elaborate on that better. There's
a lot of ways to do it, right? There's a lot of ways to do it. I always look at each match as a story. So there's a beginning, there's a middle, and the end. And sometimes you don't get to tell the whole story because the thing is just boop, done. That's it. But I always try to set it up, and then I'm thinking back to what happened earlier in the day, so then I can, talk about, whatever it is. And then it also secondarily, it rewards people. The people that do the best are the ones that are going to get talked about the most, because I'm going to remember their match or whatever it is. So if you have notable matches, you've had wars all day, that's what I'm going to end up talking about. And the only thing I really care about is getting people more comfortable in creating those big moments, right? Because really we had so many matches. But I remember a couple really, significant moments from the super matches, from the tournament, and those are the things that stick with people. So I'm like, well, let's do more of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I can see why you get into it, though. It is. I mean, I had a blast doing it. I would totally do it again. It was fun. I had a good time with it.
Fun. Now you just got to do that, but then do it for like 12 hours straight, and.
That's the concern. Let's be honest.
That's the tricky part. Yeah.
I remember how tired you were after nationals, and you didn't compete in nationals.
Nationals is like a whole other beast, because it's double, right? It's double days. So it's like a 8 to 10 hour day on the Saturday, and there's no need to compete whatsoever. And so then by the end of that day, I'm like, well, done. And then to do it for another 6 hours, and then finally, whenever the late classes in the pro happen that afternoon, then you can start pulling. And it's I might try to do it this year, but I don't know. I did just get booked by Mark McPhail, so I will be the official MC for nationals this year.
Yes, this is great news. That's great news.
Yeah. I'm very, very happy to be doing that. I've heard there's going to be some big stuff at nationals this year. There's going to be some names and some seminars and stuff. And I don't know what's been released and what the info has been released yet. But if you're in Canada, this is going to be an opportune nationals to go to.
Yes, I did see that. With the seminar part seemed interesting. I'm curious to see, I don't even know what the cost on something like that would be.
I don't know either, but I'm assuming it will be fairly reasonable. And it's like, if you're already there, and that's like, I think it'll be fairly reasonable.
Now, if Devin is there, that in itself is an excellent reason just to go to nationals, even if you just want to meet the guy. I mean, that makes it worth it right there. I mean, I've never met him. I've talked to him on the phone, but I've never met him.
Yeah, awesome guy. Devin is one of the guys that you meet. I've had the opportunity to meet like some famous people in my life, and it's always a bit of a disappointment, right? Because you have like for example, I met Alice Cooper. And so I had this in my mind of what Alice Cooper is, and he was great, but you just get up close and like you see how small he is and like everything, and you're just like, oh, right. Devin doesn't do that. You see Devin, and then you realize that Devin is even more of an alien than you originally thought he was. He's like some kind of crazy mutant that's just here for our entertainment, much like the Frozen Mr. Klaczynski here. You're frozen in this position.
I was frozen.
Really into the story, hey? Yeah, I will say the same. Like when I was hanging out, when he came out to Alberta here, I was hanging out in Matt Mass garage, and he hadn't come out of the house yet or whatever, but we're talking to Matt, and there's like 50 guys packed in his garage just waiting for him, hey?
Yeah.
He came through the door, like, I'm sure I've seen people bigger, but in my mind at that moment, I was just like, that is the biggest human being I've ever laid eyes on. Dude took his hoodie off, and like it's just something
different. It's just a different thing.
It's so weird. Yeah.
It's like his arms remind me of like a super old oak tree in your backyard or something. Like it's just gnarly, and it's a true example of what happens when you go all in. Right?
Oh.
What the man does. What the man does. And God bless him for it. I'll tell you.
God bless him for it. Yeah, he truly does a lot for the sport, man. And as soon as I mentioned arm wrestling, like you mentioned that, I remember even 10 years ago, 15 years ago, lots of people are like, what? Now it's like arm wrestling. And they're like, you know what, that Devin Larratt guy? I'm like, how do you know who Devin Larratt is?
Yeah. Oh, so you were there, Riley. I don't think you saw, but I told you when we were the day after, you, me, Kane, and a couple other people were down eating breakfast in the hotel. And this guy comes up to me while I'm making my waffle, and he's like, are you Uncle John? And I'm like, yes. Were you at the tournament yesterday? And he's like, there was a tournament yesterday? I'm here with my son for football. So some dude knew me and was in Moose Jaw for something completely unrelated. He didn't even know that arm wrestling was going on. Yeah. How insane. That was the first time that's ever happened to me.
That's how you know you made it big, man. That's how you know you made it big.
But of course, it was all related through Devin Larratt, right? They had got in through Devin, and then they kind of, saw some of my stuff as an offshoot. So yeah, it was really cool. It's just a good marker to see that, like, arm wrestling is way bigger. Like nobody was really getting noticed except for maybe John Brzezinski and Cobra Rhodes 10, 15 years ago, like on the street, right? Because you saw them over the top or something, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Different game now. Different game.
Yeah, I remember you sitting down with your bowl of cereal, and you were like, the weirdest thing just happened to me.
Yeah.
I remember you telling me that. Yeah.
I've never. That's the first time ever, and I told my wife, and I was just like, She likes it very much, but I like to revel in it every now and again.
At the Saskatoon tournament we had not that long ago, went there, and I'm getting up to the table, and there's this monster of a man, the strongman competitor guy, standing at the table. I'm walking up to shake his hand, and he looks at me, he goes, "Hey, I watched your YouTube channel." I'm like, "Oh man, you can't say that." Like, I wasn't ready for that.
It's really interesting. There's a good blend of like. The other thing is, it's not just arm wrestlers anymore, right? Because before it was like arm wrestlers watch arm wrestling. Nobody else watches arm wrestling.
No.
Right? Now it's different. There are people that are just fans, right? They like our little culture, and they like the characters, and that's what they do. They watch us. So there's no better time to put yourself out there to try to make something for yourself. And I think that was a recurring theme of what I talked about that weekend, after the event with a lot of people. It was like, look, it's awesome to be awesome at arm wrestling. It's great. God, I hope I'm good someday. But there's very, very few people who can get to that level where they're like, you know, East versus West level, king of the table level. There's a very, very small amount of people, but more people can get in through other doors, right? There's other doors. You still got to be good, right? There's a threshold. Neil Pickup always kind of uses, you have to be a competitive national level type of guy, right? That's kind of his litmus test. Have you been a national champion, or who are your big wins against, to prove that, you know, you can hang, right? You know, if you're the national champion and you had a class of 2, then maybe that's a little different. But, you know, that's kind of where it's at. So you have to have the level, but the level isn't necessarily good enough, right? If I didn't have any character, if I didn't create the Uncle John thing, it is extremely unlikely that I would have ever gotten noticed. Because I go back to the bottom 8, which was like 2018 now, something like forever ago. And that was Devin's thing, and Bowen was there, and the Beer Man, and Artem, and all these people, Juju Mufu.
Wow.
And it was that moment of, I had no YouTube presence, no nothing, had been arm wrestling for a long time already, like 7 years. And I was like, okay, I see where this is going. This is going in a character-driven thing, because all the people that were there were all characters. They all had a high level of notoriety on the internet or in the community. And that, like, within a couple months, I had the Uncle John character. We started the channel. And then the first thing I did was started reaching out to Neil, right? And saying, this is what I'm doing. And I was, you know, Neil was one of the first people willing to come on to my show, on a live show. And so I started developing. It's just like business, right? You got to like develop these relationships. You have to, you know, show your worth. That's what I say to people a lot. Show me why you're worth it. Everybody wants to have a big super match, but why should I pay you to do it? Right? Because that's what, you know, generally speaking, if you're looking for big super matches, you want some kind of money to be attached to it so you can not lose your ass every time you go and do it. So, but why? Arm wrestling isn't enough anymore, right? You got to bring something else to the table. And it might just be 1 million subscribers. Maybe you're dead in the water. Nobody cares about you. You can't even communicate, but you got 1 million subscribers. Maybe that's what you bring. And you might hate it, you might love it, but it works either way. You might be a crazy person like me, and people just want to see the train wreck, or they want, you know, whatever it is. Maybe that's what it is. You can love it, you can hate it, but, you know, it does work in certain situations. So Brilliant. That's, you know, I think I've droned on about that probably enough for most people at this point.
Yeah, I mean, we hit the nail on the head there in terms of the tournament. I mean, we heard all about it. We heard Uncle John's views and you know, a lot of that stuff, and how running the mic went. And I mean, just like what Kane was talking about, the future of Fit to Fight and what he's got going on, I want to know a little bit about Uncle John, what he's got coming up. So I mean, I know you've got Arm Wars and all that stuff. So maybe if you wanted to shine some light on what you got coming up.
Yeah, a lot of stuff coming up, a lot of crazy amount of things that are coming really, really fast now. It's nice that there's like too much stuff almost that's coming up. So the things that I currently have booked, the next big thing for me is Arm Wars, Iron House number 3. I've got an opponent. I've talked about it a little bit. Now I'm putting it back in the cover so I can go and talk to this person later on and make a big reveal about it. But it's going to be a good match at Iron House 3, left-handed. So that's what I'm doing now. I'm trying to come down in weight just a little bit. I got a little bit. I was like 220, 225 for the big match that I had with the big 300-pound guy in Ireland, which, like, I can't say that being heavier doesn't help, because it does help. I just don't like the way I look when I'm heavier. So I got to lose like 10 pounds so I can look good on the camera. That's all I care about. So I'm coming down a little bit in weight for the end of March, and really, again, working on some of that endurance stuff and making sure everything's just in good working order. After that, I am like halfway booked for an event that I'm actually going to immediately after Arm Wars, which will be in the States, but it hasn't been announced fully yet. but I'll be going and doing some emceeing there. And then the next big thing after that is probably, there's going to be something in between there, but it's not confirmed. And then Nationals, July 1st weekend right here in good old Nova Scotia and Cape Breton. Just got to drive like 4 hours and no airports. Oh, it's going to be so good, man. Yeah. And then later on in the year, it sounds like Arm Gods will be in Canada. So that's like, I think September, October, somewhere in there. And they'll be doing like lots of crazy matches. I've been talking to Marcus Thompson, the head guy at Arm Gods, and he's throwing some pretty crazy names my direction. So hopefully it all works out. I'm also in talks a little bit with Ryan Bowen about potentially doing something with him and the AWE stuff he's got going on at some point. I don't know if the match, like we've talked about a left-handed match quite a bit, so that might happen. And then possibly somebody else on the right, because I'm not in the same zip code as Ryan when it comes to the right arm. So yeah, hopefully it's a busy year.
Sounds like it. It sounds like job stability right there.
Right, like just keep them coming, and I've got a new a lot of stuff coming out with Arm Gods as well on their website, armsgods.com. They're doing some like video on demand stuff, so like high level, very move specific training. And so the first video that I'm putting out there is the javelin, of course, how to do the javelin appropriately, and not just the dickhead version of the javelin, but the real reality of basically what I call my version of the exploding hand technique, right? So my version is what the javelin should be for real, which is, you know, kind of that adapted Cobra Road style, but the way we enter into it is very, very different, right? So it's about adaptation and, you know, getting that in there. So if anybody's interested in learning the javelin, it'll be on armgods.com coming up here in the next little bit.
Right on. Look forward to seeing that.
Yeah. Anything else going on this year? I don't know. I'd like to make it out to some of the other big events. I'd like to make it down around to see a Monster Factory. Yes. They just released their lineup. That's an awesome lineup for the next Monster Factory.
Yep.
Really good matches. So I am interested in that the most. And then obviously I watched everything. So whether it's East versus West, King of the Table, you know, John versus Dennis. What do you guys think? I have a bad feeling that Dennis is going to murder John. I think he's going to murder
him. Yeah, he looks like a wall.
I mean, man, I've eaten shit before when my rule is, look, just don't bet against John. But it's goddamn Dennis.
Yeah. Yeah, he's back training full steam, it looks like. So
a lot of growth.
My criteria for that one, I think, is like listening to what John says about where Devin's at.
Yeah.
And then watching Devin, whatever he recently, it was one of the last East versus West or whatever, when he gripped up with Dennis, and now he's saying that Dennis is number 2 in the world.
Yeah. Right.
So, you know, John speaking so highly of Devin, and then Devin speaking so highly of Dennis.
I mean, unless John just is so confident that he knows where the weakness is. I mean, he's beat him before, right? But that was a hell of a long time ago. I mean, we're talking 15 to 20 years ago. That was 2006, right? Yeah. So different humans, a lot older. But a lot of things have happened to both of them in that time. So, you know, for me, the price of admission is worth it just to see the thing. And then, you know, Levon and Hermes. I don't think Hermes has a prayer in hell either. But so it's the same chance. He has the same chance as everyone else on the planet.
Yeah.
Very low.
Do you think Hermes might be, like, I would think he has a potential to be the next big potential threat to Levon, but he's going to need some more time? What do you think? Who do you think?
Well, we're going to find out. We're going to find out at King of the Table, right? Like, it's going to happen. And I assume that it will look similar to how Devin versus Levon looked. Now, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. But, you know, we saw Hermes versus Krdacha, and Krdacious certainly found out the answer. So I don't know. I mean, I'm all for it. I'll have some drinks and party down and do some live commentary, but it's interesting. It's interesting.
That's pretty cool. No, a good take. Yeah, there's some big events coming up. I love that there's all these stacked events now. Like there was a time where it just seemed like forever between big shows. Yeah. Like you always had to just wait for the next wall, or you had to,
that was it. That was all there was WAL, and it was like, however many months. And then of course it was like for part of the year it was like one every month, but then there was like 7 months of nothing. You know? That was brutal. Not anymore, boys. Not anymore.
Yeah, constant stream now.
Yeah.
Which is perfect for you.
Hey, line them up. Love it.
Right on. You got anything else for Mr. Uncle John here, Riley? Well, we still got him.
I mean, I could go on forever, but I mean, we've talked about a ton today.
Yeah, I appreciate it, guys.
Yeah, he's used to live commentary. I'm sure he could go way longer than us, but I mean,
it's one of my happier things to do in life most of the time. As long as all the crazies have been out because of all the Arm Wars shenanigans over the weekend, so they get all wound up and upset about things. So I kind of took a little time and gathered my thoughts, look for something good. But yeah, well, we'll see where Uncle John goes throughout this year. I'm telling you guys, 2023 is going to be a big year. It already has been a weird year. But things will rise and fall, and people will be upset one day and elated the next day. So hold on to your butts, people. We're going to go for a ride.
Excellent words, strong words to end this, Uncle John. Thank you for taking the time to come on our show.
Anytime.
We respect you. We watch you. We follow you. We're big fans of yours. So to have you on board on our show is... it's an honor. Thank you for everything you do for the sport. You're a well-respected person and a great guy. I've met you a couple times in person now, and you've treated me nothing other than great. So thank you very much for everything you do, man, being you. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. I really appreciate it, and I hope that everybody can feel the same, right? I like to be the bad guy, but everybody likes to be liked, right? So I really appreciate all you guys are doing too.
Right on. Can we get a grip and rip from you, Uncle John?
Oh, of course.
Grip and rip.
Grip and rip.
Yeah. Yes.